Maintenance and installation and hygienic design, all those topics are interconnected, and together these factors determine the uptime and the consistency of the uptime of food processing installations, and therefore also the productivity results of any food process installation. And we have an excellent speaker for that today, because he is the Global Hygienic Design Excellence Lead at company member Mondelēz. So a very experienced professional in this field, and he's also the chair of a new working group that is currently developing a new guideline on this topic. So let's welcome together Dimitri Tavernarakis. This new working group that you have started, what kind of stakeholders are represented in that group?
So yeah, as you mentioned, the way that hygienic design has been evolved, we see that it needs to build synergies with different disciplines in the plant, in the production process, that taking act in the production process. And we've decided to bring this team together with different stakeholders within the food industry, meaning that there are people from the manufacturing of food, people from manufacturing of equipment, and people from manufacturing of components of the equipment. And we elaborate on exchanging our experiences on how could we ensure that hygienic design and equipment reliability are supporting the food safety program of the plant, basically.
Great. Well, without further ado, I would like to hand you the stage. Dimitri, the stage is yours.
So I would like at this point to welcome you all for this short session, to bring you up to speed with, give you an update of what we have been working on with this working group, and what the expected outcome would be. Like I said, we are working with maintenance and installation practices. And the discussion at that point was, it started having all these guidelines in the HEDG, elaborating on how elements should be designed. A lot of questions that pop up is, what should I do with my current equipment at the moment? Okay, they are not perfect. So it all comes down to how they are maintained. So a little bit of background on the importance of maintenance. Now, there are two main disciplines when it comes to maintenance, so preventive and reactive. If somebody has a very, very tight preventive maintenance, like an over-engineered, let's say, preventive maintenance program, of course, you have very low likelihood of the equipment breaking down, but you might exceed the cost expectations. At the same time, if you have very poor preventive maintenance, then your breakdown will significantly increase the likelihood, and then of course you reduce the cost of the maintenance, but you have the cost of the failures in this case.
So let me first start off by taking the perspective of the end user, the food processor that is processing food on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. At what point, at what moment would you suggest to do a comprehensive evaluation and trigger a hygienic design review?
It's a very complicated question, which I really admire, to be honest. So there are the two ways. First of all, we like what we say, if it works, don't touch. If something works and it doesn't cause food safety risks, doesn't cause problems, and then it shouldn't be triggered, let's say, to do a hygienic design review. At the same time, though, we have the opportunities. So let's say that we want to improve our maintenance program or our sanitation program, mostly the sanitation program, which means that we want to have the equipment easier to be cleaned, easier to be accessed. That would require refurbishment. So in this case, we would say, opportunity driven or KPI driven to reduce the downtime for sanitation. Annual downtime for sanitation, we see that it's 7%, and we want, okay, let's bring it down to 4%. How can we do that? Well, easier removal of guards, we change the belt, we change the quick release component, or there are things that we could do during the hygienic design review, and we decide to do the refurbishment. So that's the opportunity driven hygienic design review. And there is also the food safety issue. So we have a food safety issue, we do the root cause analysis, and we see that the infrastructure was the root cause of the issue. Now we have an issue-driven hygienic design review, which drives the hygienic design improvements in order to prevent the issue from happening again in the future. And this is easier from experience to convince the management as well for the expenditure that it would be required.
Yes, that's what usually happens if there is a food safety problem. Then, of course, hygienic design will be addressed. This leads me actually to the next question, because the questions are coming in. That is related, of course, to this concept of preventive maintenance. You say it's always better to prevent, and then we have to define what do we want to prevent. And you mentioned food safety issues, but maybe there are also other factors. So the question here is, how would a plan typically optimize costs of a reactive versus preventive maintenance? So there are many variables there to consider, right?
Yeah. And I would say that it's self-driven based on the company goals. It's very, I don't know how easy and fast it can be to describe all this, because it's a whole science behind it. And personally, me, I have been using different tools to convince the sponsor to invest into this. One easy justification is the whole cost of ownership. If you have old equipment, it's already paid, is already written off the books, and it has a significant cost to keep it reliable and to keep it food safe. At the same time, you need to compare the process, the operations that each individual has, and then to call the justification. Well, is it better to invest on a new equipment that I will be expensing off my books for a few years, and at the same time, it will help me to bring down the operational cost throughout the years and the food safety program? So imagine I have an old equipment that I need to clean more thoroughly, more frequently, more time, and I need to take samples and I need to send them to a laboratory. So if I buy a new equipment which is hygienically designed, I don't need to do all of these things. Or if I refurbish it, I don't need all these things. So it's a case by case that needs to be explored from many different angles, from many different parties. Procurement, engineering could be involved, food safety could be involved. So it's a different story in everything.
Thanks again, Dimitri. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much, and great content, great questions.